There are so many different layers, so many different elements, such a complex issue. But everybody has a place, and everybody, based on your passion, based on your interest. To me, there's no other way to be doing this work.
This is Climate Curious, the podcast for people who are bored, scared, or confused by climate change.
I'm Maryam, Pasha, the director and curator at TEDxLondon and the co-host of this podcast, alongside the amazing Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Hurst, activist and advocate exploring what positive masculinities can look like, and self-confessed climate normie.
Ben, we are back at it again.
Listen, I can't believe it. I feel like we've done so many We've been doing this. We've really been working hard.
Very hard. And we are almost full circle to your first ever, because a year ago we took you to your first ever climate event.
Oh my gosh, what an experience.
And since then you've just become a pro.
I mean, now I'm kind of famous on the climate circuit.
I know.
People know my name. No, I'm joking. That's not true, everyone.
Yeah. So we are at TED Countdown London. It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots going on. So we're super excited to be joined by Shiv Soin, the youth lead at TED conferences and the executive director at Treeage. Who are you? Why are you here? Tell us about you.
Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me. So my name is Shiv Soin. I am based in New York City. I am 22 years old, and I am here I'm here today because I am the youth lead here at TED Countdown. I started this job a few months ago, and my role, the way I like to describe it to people, is if you are a young person doing climate work in any industry, in any way, in anywhere in the world, I want to talk to you. TED is always... We're a place of ideas. Countdown is specifically TED's climate initiative to be able to reduce half our emissions by 2030. And in order to actually do that, that requires such a wide range of solutions. That requires such a wide range of people all across the world. And that means we all need to come together. So TED has such a unique platform and such a unique ability to be able to amplify solutions. We want to accelerate solutions. And young people are such an important part of the climate conversation. So TED has put a lot of investment to be able to amplify youth voices, and that's what I'm here doing, and that's what I'm constantly looking for. So I do work as the youth lead here at TED Countdown, but I also, back in New York City for the last 4 years, have run an organization called Treeage. We have over 250 high school and college students across the 5 boroughs of New York City, and we work really explicitly on how we can create a Green New Deal in New York City and New York State. So we do a lot of local advocacy. We get involved in political work, and we want to make sure that young people in New York have an actual voice and a vehicle to be present and push forward. We need investment in terms of actual municipal and state policy.
Did you say how you can create a Green New Deal?
Yes, I did. What
is a Green New Deal?
So that's a great question. And for me, it's a little bit relative based on the conversation that you're having. But in New York, there's a lot of key climate issues that we need to be looking at. One key example that actually, so Climate Week, for those of you who may not know, it's in the lead up to the UN General Assembly. It happens in New York every year. Lots of people come and start discussing, one, what the year has been like in terms of climate solutions and where we need to go. One thing that I did over the course of the Climate Week was I visited the Ravenswood power plant. And Ravenswood is a power plant that lives in Long Island City in Western Queens. It generates 20% of New York City's electricity, this one power plant.
That's a lot.
And it's a lot for just one power plant to be doing for a city of 9 million people. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a map of asthma rates in New York City, within the 3-mile perimeter of Ravenswood is the highest asthma rates in the country. So specifically, it's oil and natural gas. It's a plant that lives right in Western Queens. And like I said, there's within the 3-mile perimeter. So this covers a good chunk of Queens, the South Bronx, and parts of Upper Manhattan. Highest asthma rates in the city, and it's some of the highest asthma rates in the country.
Wow.
And I actually had the opportunity to tour the full plant. I went onto the roof of the power plant, and this is something that I knew, but it was so stark when I actually saw it. You go onto the roof of the power plant, you look like 10 feet away. And what is it? It's public housing. New York City Housing Authority, 6,000 residents live within hundreds of feet. Actually, that's specific. So 6,000 live within the perimeter, but 3,000 are directly across the street from Ravenswood Power Plant. And that, to me, is ridiculous. Wow. When we talk about a New York City Green New Deal, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the 3,000 public housing residents. I'm thinking of people. We also had Hurricane Ida hit New York City last year. 13 people died across the entire borough of Queens because New York City does not have any ability to really control the flooding. Intense rainstorms are happening. We also have a massive issue with several people living in basement apartments. So when there's no way to actually drain the water, what else is going to happen? What do we expect here? We lost 13 lives because our city is not ready for the impacts of the climate crisis.
And so really, if I'm understanding correctly, the Green New Deal is kind of like it's like a grouping of different kinds of policies and actions and things that a city or a country could do to fight the climate crisis, but also adapt to the impacts of climate change.
1,000%. Because what we're looking at right now is the climate crisis is here. This is something that we're seeing the impacts of. We're seeing it with asthma rates. We're seeing it with flooding. We're seeing it with death. That's literally happening right now. So when we talk about a Green New Deal, it's yes, we need to address the right now situation. How do we ensure that we're not losing lives? How do we ensure the health of our community? How do we ensure the health of our neighbors, of ourselves, our siblings? So many people we need to really address. But what does a better future look like? What is the future of Ravenswood Power Plant? Does it have to be an oil and natural gas plant? What does the future of New York City look like, where we prioritize the health and care of our community members, of our neighbors? And how do we invest the resources to actually make that a path forward? And that to me is what a Green New Deal actually is.
So it's like reduction of emissions and resilience for New York City?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's your that's your job. But you also have another. So when do you sleep?
I sleep pretty well. These jobs to me feed really well into each other because I work with, I'm 22, like I said, I work with a lot of really brilliant high school and college students. And I've been doing this work for years. I got really heavily involved in climate back with like the major movement. The way I got started in all of this was I was one of the lead organizers for the 2019 New York City Youth Global Climate Strike. So I was helping coordinate things across the country, but I was also the main organizer in New York City. And that strike had over 315,000 people on September 20th, 2019. So that was almost
record-breaking. Trying to do the maths in your head, right? 315,000.
No, I was trying to do maths of like, you were 18?
I was,
oh my gosh, yeah.
September 20th, 2019. I was 19. My birthday's on the 9th of September, so I turned 19.
September birthday too.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay. Look, Shiv, there's so much here. Wait, we have to unpack. Ben
we haven't even asked you about what star sign you are yet. What is
well, I'm a Virgo, so I can answer that.
Virgos,
Yeah.
right.
We're Virgo. We got Virgo.
You guys are Virgos?
I'm a Virgo.
Not me, I'm
You're
an
a Virgo.
Aries. This is not relevant to that. But I am an Aries.
Let me start by saying, one of the things that I love when we come to these countdown events is seeing so many young people here.
Yeah.
That it's not a conversation where it's just like one token young person let in the room. What is that? I want to talk a little bit about that because I think that there's something about how the climate movement loves to talk about, oh, it's so inspiring to see young people. Young people are here. The young people are the future.
Yeah.
And yet, if young people are the future, why are we not letting them make more decisions? And I just want to understand how you are changing that dynamic with what you're doing, both in both organizations.
Yeah, because I think that there's two different ways that I would approach this, and they feed very well into each other. So I think from a countdown perspective, we had a lot of young people in Edinburgh last year. And what I really want to do in this role, I've started this 3 months ago, approximately. And what I really have been focusing on is meeting so many different young people. And one person that comes to mind, Augusta Sen, for example, was somebody that I connected with recently who actually is consulting several African countries in terms of sustainability measures. And she's 24 years old.
Wow.
And thinking really intentionally about how this happens. And I was talking to her in the lead up to COP, which is coming up this November in Egypt. And that's really amazing. And I want to continue to find people like that. And they may give a talk, they may do something else, we may connect them with specific people, but there's so many different layers and elements that we can do there.
I find this really interesting, right? Because for me, the big conversation about young people within the climate movement is about youth washing. but
Yeah.
more specifically, it's a conversation that makes it seem like young people are just kind of like tokens in any kind of situation. Like, you're not actually really doing things. We just want you to be here so it looks like we're engaging in the conversation. What I'm finding really interesting about what you're saying is that it sounds like people are doing loads of different things all across the board. I'm interested in like how youth washing has showed up for you. Like, is that something you do? It sounds to me like you're immune to it at this point. Like, we can't youth wash you. But do you see that happening around you? It feels like you're almost like the youth washing police at this point. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know if I would call myself that, but I think that I definitely see it.
You should.
I definitely see it. And I think that it's what I'm really enjoying about TED is that we're being really intentional and like trying to make these really strong bridges. And it's a massive issue when we're looking at corporations, when we're looking at governments. There's always a few, and even like international level, like there's always a few, like 1 to 2 people that people are always going to. And
Right.
these people are great. They do great work, but they're not the entirety scope of the youth movement and the environmental movement. This has been going on for decades, generations. This predates everybody here right now who's speaking, everybody who's listening, and everybody who's alive on this planet right now. And I think the way that I approach this is, one, I'm very cognizant of what my abilities are and what, as a young person, can do. And I am 22 years old. I just graduated college. Like, I am not. Thank you.
Good job.
But I am not going to be the one writing specific regulations or things like that.
Right.
But I can give an example in terms of some of the work that I've done in New York. So like I said, I was in Western Queens in Long Island City, and some other work that I was doing in Western Queens back in 2021, we were doing a lot of work in New York City Council. There was massive elections, pretty much 35 of the council members at the 51 body, term limited. So there was massive turnover in New York City Council. And one of the council members who now is a council member, this person ended up elected. Her name's Tiffany Caban, now represents Astoria, East Elmhurst, parts of Jackson Heights, and like that area of Western Queens. And as she was running her election, we endorsed her very early, and she came to us and was like, Shiv, like, we want to actually figure out what the hell a Green New Deal for New York City is. I hear that phrase all the time. You ask me the question and nobody knows what it means most of the time.
Right.
And like, what does that actually mean? And we had a lot of honest conversations, and I was also like, I can't answer all of that for you.
It's not just me.
Yeah, honestly, and she also was such a great partner in this because she very much understood that. She's like, Shiv, I want you and your organization and your members, specifically your members in my district as well, at the table, but like, who else is at the table? And we sat down and we thought really critically, okay, we need some lawyers. Like, we need some people who have that technical experience. Like, what does the New York City Council have the actual ability to do here? We also need residents. Tiffany has a lot of public housing in her district. She has a specific public housing that has very specific issues. People who are residents there, what are they seeing? What are they needing in terms of improving their general conditions of life? Everybody here, and this isn't just a guiding principle overall, is like, we all deserve lives of dignity. We don't deserve to just scrape by. Like, we deserve to thrive. We deserve joy in this world. And when we talk about a Green New Deal, once again, that's also a key part of it. So getting the people who are so directly impacted, students, that's what we were bringing. Students is another key perspective. Other environmental groups that have other specialties. There are people who are working on power generation. There are people who are working on composting. Everybody had a different layer within it. Like I mentioned earlier as well, with basement apartments, housing. New York City, when we talk about New York City, we have to talk about housing. It's such a key issue for residents that live in the city. How does green housing actually look like? What is the path forward? And all these issues are so interconnected. So we all got together and started having conversations like, okay, what actually needs to be included here? We brought a ton of people together, and it's sitting on her website still. And it's just an outline of like, key aspects, key things that this needs to include. And we wrote it out. We all came together, and like, from our end, like I said, once again, like, we work really closely, and our membership is entirely high school and college students. We are entirely, well, I graduated 3 months ago. So with the exception of me, it is all students.
Right.
And what do students really care about? public schools and schools across New York City. That's super important because just this past year in this past municipal budget for fiscal year 23, Mayor Eric Adams defunded schools by $200 million. We increased the NYPD budget, the New York City Police Department. We decreased the budget for public schools. Public schools also in New York City, over 1 million students, predominantly Black and Brown Hispanic students, predominantly students who are also much lower on the socioeconomic side. These are poor students, a lot of them. We also have a significant homeless student population in New York City. So when we talk about a Green New Deal that's just, equitable, that was one thing that we were really focused on, an active investment in the infrastructure of schools, but also what is going on inside these schools. This is a fight that's been going on for years past what we've been doing. We're a new organization. We came out of the 2019 climate strike, and this is a fight that requires so much money, so much time, but that is where students are doing their work. And that is where we can provide a key perspective in this larger picture. And when we were putting together the Green New Deal and that Tiffany was proposing, it was like students were at the table, young people were at the table, but we were one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
But not only that, we were helping put together the puzzle.
Yeah.
So when we talk about youth washing again, like it's not like that to me, I think is the magic formula. We are not the experts. We're not, I mean, we could be the leaders as well, depending on the context of the situation that you're looking at. But this is intergenerational. This is issues. This is multi-issued as well. There are so many different layers, so many different elements, such a complex issue. But everybody has a place, and everybody, based on your passion, based on your interest, based on like the living conditions that you're in, based on your age, there's so many different elements, and bringing these together, to me, there's no other way to be doing this work. I just can't imagine writing any other way.
So what I'm hearing is that it's about collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
That's one of the ways to like get around this. I'm curious to know, how did you find common ground with all of these different groups? Like, what were you all pulling towards? And what was that process like?
Yeah. I mean, for us specifically, we're New York City residents. We, the reason I love doing this work is because I love the city I live in. It's a city that I want to continue staying in. It's a city that I ideally would love to raise my family in. And to me, that means this work is preserving a city for my future and for my family's future. And when I've been working with people, that's really the common ground that you reach. You care about the city, you care about the world you live in. And the active question then becomes, okay, how do we get there? How do we improve it for everyone? How do we make this a just city? How do we make this a just state? How do we make this a just country, a just world? All of these put together.
So I want to ask you, Shiv, because honestly, this, just listening to you, it's intense and it's awesome. Like you're doing the work. Like you're doing the work, you're bringing people together. It is intense. It can be intense. You're now, in this role with TED Countdown, working with so closely youth activists from every corner of the world. How are you seeing people keep themselves motivated, positive? How are people taking care of themselves? How do you stop this work leaving you depleted?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer is very individual to the person. And for me, like I said earlier, I love the city I live in. I really actively enjoy the fact that I'm able to go all over the city. I bake it into my job. Personally speaking, I love running. I love walking. I love trying different food. I love just exploring. And as I'm doing this work, touring Ravenswood a few weeks ago was a perfect excuse for me to go into the area and just see something I've never seen before. And that's how I find joy. And it keeps me super motivated. It keeps me really excited and engaged. But that's because I feel like I've been able to really clearly identify my love and my passion and I'm very privileged to be able to make that a job of mine and be able to continue doing this work. And I challenge people who are listening to this and also people who are asking themselves that question. This work is upsetting. It is depressing, thinking about the numbers, thinking about the statistics. But I do challenge you to, when you're thinking about getting involved, when you're thinking about doing this work, it's super important, in my perspective at least, to get involved in a way that you are actually enjoying it. What are you passionate about? And we actually had a talk, and so have a course of London events over the course of this week. And one that's really sticking out to me is Xavier Cortada, who's a Cuban American or Cuban artist living in Miami. And Miami is even more at risk in flooding than New York City is. And the way he's an artist and the way that he's articulating the urgency of the climate crisis is making art yard signs with glaciers that he got from Antarctica, like that print of like, you are 7 inches above sea level, you are 4 inches above sea level. Miami, even he was explaining that even the more inland you get, that doesn't potentially like save you. And like, I knew that Miami was at risk, but I didn't even understand to that extent.
Yeah, me neither.
And Xavier Cortada is really my jaw was dropped like watching that. I was so invested, so interested. It's a way to bring people in, but he's an artist. Like, why am I going to ask him to write up municipal building codes, which is another campaign that we're working on, which is why I pulled up that example. But
so specific.
Yeah, we can talk about municipal building codes for New York City if you'd like, but not
everyone's cup of tea. It's all right.
He does not need to be working on that, and that's his passion. But if I asked him to work and be like, tell me how we're going to scale down all the building emissions in Miami, he's going to be like, get the hell out of here. Don't speak to me. Like, you have to find people's passion. You have to meet them where they're at. And there's also so many different, like, climate activism and climate organizing has so many different permutations. And I think letting go of the conventional understanding of these things is really critical here. I find a lot of passion in the work that I do. I'm very nerdy. I will talk very happily about building emissions, but not everybody's cup of tea.
Right.
Can I ask you, because you mentioned loving New York City and loving the city you live in, which I grew up in. I went to high school in Long Island.
She just swooned. If you could see
you went to high school in Long Island?
I did.
Just
Where in Long
swooned.
Island?
At New Hyde Park in Herrick.
Okay.
She's
so
red.
On the border with Queens.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe on the border of Queens, yeah.
So I get the idea of that love. I'm just so curious to know, how young were you? At what point did this pull you in, and how? Like, was it gradual? Was there something that you saw happened? What's your origin story?
Yeah. So this is I actually, whenever I tell this to people in climate circles, I get a mix of reactions, but I am very severely allergic to the environment. Like, for years, I still Zyrtec is an allergy medication. I generally am taking it every day still.
Wow.
365 through the winter, and I live in New York, and it's not a ton of greenery. Still, I have to take it, and my allergies, thank God, have gotten a lot better, but still requires medication. So both of those combined, plus I was just taking classes in school, like general environmental science in high school, like what is the climate, all of that. But despite those allergies, like I said, I love exploring. I love going outside. If I could hike every day, I would. I can't. I have yet to go full on hiking because I'm a little nervous what's going to happen if I go all the way up and have a reaction. I need to figure that out at some point. But
you're hiking with a doctor. You need to find a doctor friend and go hiking with a doctor.
Maybe a good idea.
Or a helicopter owner.
That is also, see, I'm open to trying anything. I'm a little...
Shout out to doctors and helicopter owners.
Yeah, all of those.
But yeah, so I think for me, it was very much from a health perspective and an educational perspective as well. And to me, all of those kind of combined. And I was doing some political work prior. I got my own inception was in the US in the 2016 election, just thinking really deeply about politics and its implications. And then from there, it kind of just naturally happened at me very deep diving in. But I found an ability to just do the work that I love, that I care about. And I feel really blessed today that I'm able to I'm in London on a work trip, but I also last night went on a 2-hour walk in the middle of London. I don't know if this was a great idea or not. I don't know much about London. It was
You're still here.
Depends where you walked.
I did. So I don't know where I walked, to be really honest. I wasn't looking at a map.
That was not a good idea.
I started, so I was okay, we'll figure this out. So we're at the Barbican right now. So I was around there, took the train. I was okay, I know what the Big Ben is. I know what Westminster is. So I started there, and truly could not tell you where I went after that. I saw some signs. I ended up somewhere.
Did you follow the river?
I did. Yes, I did go over the river. This I know. I knew my starting point because I very intentionally picked it. I'm okay, it's probably a touristy area. There will be people there, would be my guess. And it was 11:30 at night. And then made my way back to my hotel by 1:30. I don't know if that
Love it.
That's totally fine in New York. I don't know what the culture is in London.
It's fine here. It's fine
Okay.
here.
You've established that it's fine here.
Yeah.
You've changed that for me
I mean,
personally.
I
Oh,
did
it
it.
is
I'm
fine
going
here.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going on a walk.
Anyone who
Go for
moves,
it.
anyone who moves to London does that.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
start
yeah, yeah.
walking,
Yeah.
and then the first time you walk around, you're like, oh, this tube station and this tube
Everything's
station makes a lot more sense
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Your subway system's very easy, I will say. Like, I mean,
Way
I get a
easier than
lot.
New York.
I get
'Cause
so
yours
many things about New York.
It's not.
Yeah.
That New York's, oh my gosh, unbearable. I love you, New York, but that is rough. You got to fix that.
So before we start talking about public transport,
Yeah, I
I'm
hope
gonna
that's
try-
part
I'm
of the
gonna-
Green New Deal. Sorry, just to clarify.
That is another
Yeah.
part of it.
Good.
I love New York subways.
And now, it's time for our climate confessions. Let's fess up to the bad habits we just can't kick.
Easy. Well, first, I'll just preface by saying that there is no such thing as a perfect environmentalist and totally dispel that notion. And I also think when we talk about things like carbon footprints, like that was, just to be very explicit about it, a tool that was a marketing tool by the fossil fuel industry. When we talk about actions that we can take, they need, yes, like individual actions, anything that you can personally do, 1000% do it. But if you are not talking about fossil fuel companies, if you are not talking about the fact, like where the actual emissions are coming from, like you are missing the point here. And you are falling directly into the trap of companies like ExxonMobil, of companies like Shell, who really want you to feel that pain. So I just have to preface it with all of that.
We preach. We are 100% here for this.
So I will say, I mean, I've been in London and I love coffee. I'm a very big coffee drinker, and something that I've been resolving myself to do is, so I'm going to be in London and I'm going to be in Paris after this for vacation. And I am going to try a different coffee shop every day. Have not been super great on that during the work week, but I have a few extra days, so we'll get better. But the last few days, like I have, like people have their thermoses. I did not bring a thermos with me to London. I have just been drinking coffee, picking things up, plastic cups, all of that for the last few days. But I am working pretty constantly, and I'm like, you know what? Like if I have to just like get through the day with like a cappuccino and I pick up a plastic cup, it's really not the end of the world. Yeah, everything I said earlier, that is the key preface, but I am by no means perfect here.
And shout out to you, Shiv.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Shout out to you guys. And shout out to everybody.
We love each other. It's been a delight to talk to you. My wish is that you continue to have this level of energy, because if you do, I think we're in good hands.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been up since 7 a.m.
Okay, so this is like manic energy now. I love it. Thank you for joining us. I know you're in the midst of TED Countdown London, so we really appreciate you taking the time. And remember,
Stay curious. Thank you for joining us this week. We really hope you enjoyed this episode.
if you did, please hit the follow button to make sure you get next week's release.
We are now officially crowdsourcing Climate Confession, so please leave yours in the ratings and the reviews section, and we'll shout out you next time.
A huge thank you to our headline partner, City, who has supported us for the past 6 years to bring world-changing ideas to the TEDxLondon stage, and has championed Climate Curious since day one.
And shout out to our fabulous team behind the pod.
This episode was produced by Josie Colter,
Comms written by Tess Lowry,
artwork designed by Rebecca Mingus,
curation by Maryam Pasha,
mixed and engineered by Ben Beheshty,
music also by Ben Beheshty,
presented by Ben Hurst.
and Maryam Pasha. Remember, stay curious.